an American man named Thomas McKennis, an elderly history researcher living in California, loves old items because they're where he can learn about history and discover interesting stories. Thomas lives a solitary life, but he has a daughter named Emma who lives far away. Emma always calls him every evening to check in and chat. One day, Thomas went to a second-hand shop and saw an old black and white television. He bought it for just 50 cents and took it home. Thomas loved old things because he believed every object had its own story. When he got the television home, he unplugged it to prevent any accidents. When he removed the back cover, he found an old yellow envelope with a picture of the famous actress Marilyn Monroe on it. Thomas felt surprised and scared at the same time. When he opened the envelope, he found a letter and several black and white photos. The letter read, "If you have found this, it means I am no longer alive. My name is Dr. Andrew King. I was a very influential researcher in America. They knew what I knew and they were hunting me down to kill me. I hid it somewhere no one would ever think to look, and it might be the key to uncovering the whole truth." Thomas continued to dismantle the television and he found a strange object. It was a small metal block with an on-off switch. On the block was a 5-digit code 19555. On the vacuum tube, Thomas saw the words Smart TV and 2.0. Thomas felt excited but lost control of himself. When he finished taking everything apart, he found a small hole inside the television. Inside the hole was a tiny chip with the words Singularity 2.0 on it. At that moment, Thomas realized the television he bought was not an ordinary one, but the key to unraveling a whole mystery. Thomas's hands trembled as he held the chip. A cold dread washed over him, a feeling he hadn't experienced since his days in the war. The words on the chip, Singularity 2.0, echoed in his mind, and he had a terrifying premonition. This wasn't just a discovery. It was a link to a secret that had been buried for decades. He recalled an old news story he had researched years ago about Dr. Andrew King, a brilliant but eccentric scientist who had mysteriously vanished in 1960. The media had dismissed it as a simple disappearance, but Thomas, with his historian's intuition, had always felt there was more to the story. King had been working on a top-secret project for the U.S. government, something related to artificial intelligence and quantum computing, fields far ahead of their time. His project had been abruptly shut down, and a month later he disappeared without a trace. Now holding this small chip, Thomas realized the truth. The television wasn't just a container. It was a piece of King's last message. The old vacuum tubes weren't just for a TV. They were part of a prototype computer. King had built it to hide his final, most significant work. He remembered the note. "They knew what I knew, and they were hunting me down." The "they" could only mean one thing. The same government agency that had shut down King's project. They hadn't just closed it. They had tried to erase all evidence of it. Thomas, an ordinary man who had simply bought a relic of the past for 50 cents, was now holding a secret that powerful people had killed to protect. Thomas looked at the photos that came with the letter. They were strange, blurry images of what looked like computer circuitry. But something was off. In the background of one photo, partially obscured, he saw a woman's face. It was his wife, Sarah, smiling at the camera. He felt a shiver run down his spine. How could a photo of his wife, taken in the early 60s, be in the hands of a scientist who was about to die? His wife had never mentioned knowing a man named Andrew King. He felt a sudden knot in his stomach. The secret was much closer to home than he had ever imagined. The past wasn't just in the history books. It was tangled up in his own life. In a way he couldn't yet comprehend. Thomas knew he couldn't go to the police. This wasn't a case for them. This was something bigger, something that involved powerful unseen forces. He had to uncover the full truth himself, not just for the sake of history, but for the sake of his own family's past. The old television, now just a pile of parts, had become a puzzle, and he was the only one who could put it back together. Thomas knew he couldn't just sit there. He had to act. But where to start? He re-examined the contents of the envelope. The letter, the blurry photos, and the tiny Singularity 2.0 chip, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle. He realized the photos weren't just random circuit diagrams. They were part of a schematic. And one photo, the one with his wife, Sarah, in the background, was different. It wasn't a diagram, but a simple snapshot, a memory. Why would Dr. King have that? The more he thought about it, the more his mind raced back to his wife. Sarah had always been a mystery to him, in the best way possible. She was bright, a little mysterious, and never spoke much about her past before they met in the late 1950s. She had simply said she was from the Midwest and had come to California for a new start. Now, looking at this photo, a chilling thought took root. What if she knew Dr. King? What if her past wasn't as simple as she had made it seem? He remembered a small locked box she kept hidden in her closet. A box she told him never to open. He had respected her privacy, but now, a burning need to know the truth took over. Could the answers be inside that box? Thomas decided the first step was to find out who this Dr. Andrew King really was. The old newspaper clippings had only given him so much. He needed to dig deeper. He had a few options. Contact an old colleague. He had a friend, another historian named Harold, who had a vast network and access to government archives. Harold might be able to find more information about Dr. King's classified project without raising suspicion. Go to the library. The public library in downtown Los Angeles had extensive archives from the 1960s. He could go through microfilm of old newspapers and see if there were any details he missed the first time around. Maybe a mention of Dr. King's associates or other project members. Investigate the locked box. This was the most personal and potentially risky option. Breaking his promise to Sarah felt wrong, but the photo of her and the mysterious note left him with no choice. He had to know what was inside. He picked up the old rotary phone. His hand hovered over the number for his colleague, Harold. This was the safest option, the first logical step. But a part of him, a part filled with worry and a desire to protect his wife's memory, told him to check the locked box first. The answer might be closer than he thinks. Thomas put the phone down, his hand still shaking slightly. He couldn't call Harold yet. The thought of bringing someone else into this, of potentially putting them in danger, was too much. This was personal now. The photo of Sarah had made it so. He went to the bedroom and looked at the closet. The small wooden box was on the top shelf, exactly where Sarah had always kept it. It was an antique with ornate carvings, and it had a tiny, intricate lock. He felt a pang of guilt. He had promised her he wouldn't open it. But that promise was made before he held a microchip tied to a murder and a secret that involved her. Taking a deep breath, he pulled a bobby pin from the vanity table. His hands, though old, were steady as he carefully worked it into the lock. He had learned a few tricks in the war, skills he never thought he'd use again. After a few tense moments, he felt a small click. The lid came open with a soft creak. Inside, the box was not filled with old jewelry or letters. Instead, it contained several items that seemed completely out of place. A tarnished locket with a photo of a young Sarah and a man he didn't recognize. The man had kind eyes and a familiar-looking smile. Thomas felt a prickle of unease. A small, worn leather notebook with mathematical equations and complex diagrams scrawled on every page. He couldn't understand any of it, but the diagrams looked eerily similar to the ones he found in the photos from the TV, a single pristine photograph. It showed Sarah, a few years younger, standing in a lab next to none other than Dr. Andrew King. But in this photo, King wasn't just a colleague. He was smiling at her with an undeniable affection, and his arm was lightly around her waist. Sarah was holding a very early prototype of what looked like the TV he had just dismantled. Thomas's world tilted. His wife wasn't just a bystander in this mystery. She was directly involved. She hadn't been an ordinary woman from the Midwest. She had been a scientist, or at least a student, working alongside a man the government wanted to silence. He looked at the locket again. The man in the picture wasn't him. It was Dr. King. A new, more terrible realization crashed over him. Sarah hadn't just known Dr. King. They had been in love, and the secret he died for was something she was a part of. He felt a mix of betrayal and heartbreaking sadness. His wife, the love of his life, had lived a whole other life before him, one that was now bleeding into his present. He knew what he had to do now.
He had the chip, the schematic-like diagrams.
And now he had his wife's own notes. He had to figure out what Singularity 2.0 was and why it was so dangerous. The answer was no longer just about a dead man and a hidden TV. It was about protecting his wife's legacy and understanding the woman he had loved for over 30 years. But he also knew he was in a race against time. If they were still out there, if they were still looking for Dr. King's work, it wouldn't be long before they realized The last remaining piece, the TV, had been found. And when they found the TV, they would find him. Thomas sat in his study, the contents of the box and the television laid out before him. The tiny chip, Sarah's notebook, and the cryptic photographs, all fragments of a life he never knew. He had a profound choice to make. He could destroy everything and bury the secret for good, protecting himself from the powerful forces that killed Dr. King. Or he could risk everything to honor his wife's legacy and uncover the truth she had dedicated her life to protecting. He chose the latter. He couldn't live with the silence. He started with the notebook. The equations were beyond him, but he recognized some of the diagrams. They weren't just circuit boards. They were blueprints for something much more complex. He saw references to quantum entanglement and data compression, concepts that were barely theories in the 1960s. He realized the television wasn't just a prototype. It was an interface. The real device, the Singularity 2.0, was somewhere else, likely a large, powerful computer. The television was just a way to access it. Next, he examined the chip. The code 19555 from the metal block on the television had to be a key. He tried combining the number with the letters on the chip, Sengulart. Nothing. He then looked at Sarah's notebook again, searching for a pattern. On the very last page, almost hidden in the binding, was a single, faded sentence: "The mind is the lock. The past is the key." Suddenly it clicked. The number wasn't a code for a machine. It was a year, 1955, and the 5 at the end of the code, it was the month, May 1955, was the year Sarah had told him she moved to California. It was the year Dr. King's research project was first mentioned in a classified memo he had found in a history archive. The numbers were not a password but a date, the day the project was born. He needed to find the machine. The core of the Singularity 2.0, the notebook and photos, pointed to a specific location. The background of one photo showed a unique, geometric building with a symbol on it that Thomas recognized from his research on the early days of America's nuclear program, an old, decommissioned military facility in the Mojave Desert. It was a place known to historians but long forgotten by the public. He packed a bag with the chip, the notebook, and a small flashlight. He left a note for his daughter, Emma, telling her he was going on an expedition and that he would call her soon. He drove his old sedan all night, the desert air growing cooler as he approached the abandoned facility. The place was a maze of rusted fences and dilapidated buildings. He finally found the one that matched the photograph. Its symbol faded but still visible. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of old machinery. He followed the diagrams from the notebook, navigating through dark corridors until he found a hidden sublevel. He descended a flight of stairs and entered a vast subterranean chamber. In the center, a colossal cylindrical machine stood humming softly. It was an early quantum computer, a marvel of engineering from its time. This was Singularity 2.0. He found a terminal and, guided by Sarah's notes, inserted the chip. A screen flickered to life showing a complex command line. He typed the date, 05-1955. The machine responded. It was more than a computer. It was a digital archive, a network of all the data and secrets Dr. King had collected. It contained details about the government's attempts to weaponize artificial intelligence, their apathetic disregard for human life, and the names of the powerful officials who had ordered Dr. King's death. But the most shocking discovery came last. The Singularity 2.0 had one final entry, a message from Sarah to Thomas, recorded just after his death. Her voice, digital and synthesized, spoke to him. "Thomas, my dearest, if you are hearing this, it means you found the TV. Andrew and I built this to preserve the truth, to protect it from those who would use it for evil. We were more than just colleagues. We were a team. I was a part of his work. He died protecting me, protecting our secret. And now, it's yours. Tell the world what they tried to hide. Let them know what Singularity 2.0 could have been, a tool for peace, not war. The truth is your mission now. I love you." Tears streamed down Thomas's face. He wasn't just a historian who had stumbled upon a mystery. He was the last guardian of a secret his wife had helped create. He had the power to expose the truth, to reveal the dark underbelly of the government, and to clear Dr. King's name. It was his mission now, and he would not fail. He knew that this discovery would change the course of history, just as a simple 50-cent television had changed his life forever.